Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be covering traditional IRA, Roth IRA, what the differences are, what the similarities are, and what you should be doing in that regard. But first, like always, I have to definitely beg for your approval by asking you to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and maybe leave me some love, comments, questions, that whatever you have in the comments section below. So what is the difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA? Which is better? You know, how are they treated tax-wise? Are there any income limits to these things? And what should you do? Like, which one should you prioritize? Well, we're gonna cover all that stuff, all right? So I'm gonna start off by talking about the traditional IRA. So the traditional IRA is similar to a 401k, you know, in terms of tax treatment, in that whatever money that you contribute to the IRA is tax deductible. That means, you know, if you contribute $3,000 in a year, you get to take that $3,000, reduce your taxable income, and then that is your benefit for contributing to that traditional IRA. Now, the cool thing with these is that whatever investments you pick within the IRA, they will grow tax-free, which means, like, you know, if you pick mutual funds or index funds, if you are earning dividends and interest off of those funds, those dividend and interest income will not be taxed to you, okay? Which is awesome. That actually, like, you know, once you get going on a lot of money, that's gonna save you a lot of money in the long run once you have a lot of funds in the IRA account. So it grows tax-free. And then, so when you withdraw the money, that's when you pay taxes. That's when you get taxed, is on the withdrawal, okay? So the withdrawal will be taxed at ordinary income rates. It's not capital gains, it's ordinary income, which are not the favorable rates. But nonetheless, you know, your funds grew tax-free. You have all this huge amount of money in your account, hopefully, at this point, at the point of retirement. And now when you withdraw it, you just count it as ordinary income, as if you're paying for yourself. Now, if you're to take the funds out before the retirement age, which is 59 and a half, according to the IRS, if you're to withdraw any money out, you're gonna face a 10% penalty plus income tax. Now, I would almost make the argument that you should never take money out of your retirement accounts early, mainly because of the 10% penalty, but because you don't want to be robbing your future self to, you know, fix whatever nonsense you have going on, you know, in your present life. So I don't really recommend taking any 401k or IRA distributions out before your retirement age. It's going to be costly. There are some exceptions to get you past the penalties, and I'll talk about that later. But either way, like, I just don't recommend pulling money from your retirement to cover your ass in the present term. One other fun little attribute about an IRA is that you have to take minimum required distributions when you turn 72. So, you know how I told you when you contribute money, the contributions are tax deductible, and then it grows tax-free, and it's just sitting there tax-free. Well, the IRS will want its money sometime. It's gonna want its tax money. So when you hit the age of 72, you are required to take some distributions out. And the calculation is based on your age and some other things. But you will be required to take some money out and pay taxes on that money because the IRS wants to get its hands on the tax revenue, okay? So something to be aware of there. This also applies if you inherited an IRA from somebody, like if your grandfather passed away or your father passed away and you inherited their IRA account, you will have to start taking required minimum distributions immediately. All right, so now that we talked about the traditional IRA, let's talk about the Roth IRA, which is, I'm sure many of you heard of. Like, you know, if you're in the financial world or in personal finance, you've probably heard people say, oh, you gotta contribute to your Roth IRA. It's so good, you know, like, why is it so good? And that's why I'm here to tell you now. So unlike the traditional IRA, the Roth IRA acts a little differently. The contributions you make into it are not deductible. Okay, so if you contribute $3,000 to this Roth IRA, you don't get to reduce your taxable income by $3,000. However, the funds do grow tax-free, just like the traditional IRA. And here's the kicker. When you withdraw the money out of your Roth, it's not taxed. None of it is taxed, as long as you withdraw after your retirement age. Now, if you withdraw before your retirement age, there might be some penalties there, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But the cool thing is, if you withdraw, you know, after you retire, zero taxes there. It's incredible, right? So much better than the IRA. Well, maybe. I'll go over the differences. I'll use real life numbers here in a second. But just know that, it's grown tax-free and then it's not taxable when you withdraw it. Now, if you were to withdraw some money early before your retirement age, you may be subject to penalties just like the traditional IRA, okay? However, it's calculated a little different. So with a Roth IRA, you are subject to penalties based on the gains that you withdraw. Whereas the traditional IRA, you're subject to penalties on the entire amount that you withdrew. So here's an example. If you contributed $10,000 to a Roth IRA and then it grew to $15,000, so it gained $5,000. And let's say you withdrew the entire $15,000 early with no exceptions, then you'll be taxed on the $5,000 gain and you will pay a 10% penalty on the $5,000 gain. The $10,000 that you contributed will not be taxed and will not incur a penalty. Okay, so that's different from a traditional IRA where if you contributed $10,000 to the plan, it grew to $15,000. If you withdrew the entire $15,000, you're going to be taxed on the entire 15 and you're going to be penalized on the entire 15. So, the cool thing about the Roth is that it's got this thing called a basis. When you contribute money to it, because it's not tax deductible, you're building a basis, a tax basis on your contributions. So if you really needed the money from the Roth, you can pull out as much as your basis and not be taxed or penalized on it. Now, same thing applies. I still don't recommend you withdrawing money from your retirement early because you're robbing your future self. All right, now there are some things that make an exception to the Roth and traditional IRA penalties where you can get by without being penalized if you were to, meet some of these requirements. So the first one here is medical. If you needed to pull from your IRA or Roth IRA to make some, medical payments, that may exclude you from the 10% penalty. But there are a lot of limits to this, okay? So don't just assume that you can withdraw money, pay for medical, and then you're good. There's actually a lot more limits to this that I'm not going to cover in this video. There's health insurance premiums. Same thing, limits here. If you withdraw your money from your traditional or Roth, you might be able to exclude yourself from the penalties. And then we have, if you become permanently disabled, then you can withdraw from these accounts without facing any penalties. Also, you use the money to pay for higher education costs. Next, we have, house purchase. Every taxpayer has up to a $10,000 allowance in their lifetime to pull from the IRA or Roth to make a purchase of a house without facing penalties. You can also draw from this money to pay off IRS debt, or of course, if you die, then obviously you won't be penalized, or whoever inherits your accounts won't be penalized for withdrawing on this money. So one thing to keep in mind, if you're withdrawing from these accounts, you probably would still be subject to income tax, even if you don't get penalized. So just remember, penalties and income tax are two separate things here. So one thing that people probably talk a lot about are backdoor Roths. Now, why is that a thing? Well, because Roth IRAs actually have income limits, and if you make too much money, you can't contribute to a Roth. And if you make contributions to a Roth in the period where you're not allowed to, you'll be penalized for that as well until you pull out the money. So there's this thing called a backdoor Roth, where you take some regular traditional IRA money, you convert it to a Roth, and you don't make like contributions per se, but you're just converting it. And that's called a backdoor Roth. And why is it so popular? Well, it's a way for like rich folks to, move their money from a traditional to a Roth IRA. Now, when that happens, you pay taxes, on the amount that you're moving over to the Roth. So if you have $100,000 in a traditional that you want to convert to a Roth, well, you're going to pay taxes on the $100,000 in the year that you converted it. So, a lot of talks about, how Roth is so much better, or maybe how traditional is so much better. Like there's a lot of arguments here, but I just wanted to show you guys actual numbers as to whether or not you should really be so concerned about whether or not your Roth or traditional should be converted or vice versa, okay? Because it might not matter so much, and I'll show you. Here, let's check it out. All right, here we have hypothetical traditional IRA, okay? Let's say you have a balance of $100,000, and let's let's assume that you're going to grow 10% per year in the account and you're not going to make any other contributions. You just have this $100,000. Well, here we see over the years, this is what your account will look like after 5 years if you're growing at 10%. So at the end of year 5, you're going to have about $161,000 in it. Okay. Now let's say we just take all that money out of investments for whatever reason, and then we just start making withdrawals on it so it doesn't grow anymore. So here we have in the first year, let's withdraw 50, 50, and 50 in years 1 through 3. And then year 4, we're just going to withdraw the balance. And that's how we get the same, let's say we cleared it out in year 4. Well, in each of these years, you're going to see that we're paying taxes. We are assuming 25% on the 50,000 in each year, 25% on this 11,000. And that's going to give us this net amount each year after taxes. Okay, that's going to equal 120,000-ish. Now, let's say your friend is like, hey man, you really got to convert to a backdoor, like you really got to do it. And you're like, I don't know if it's worth it. Who knows? Let's see. So here, let's pretend that we converted this $100,000 back at the beginning of this exercise. So we converted it to $100,000. And like I said, on the event of conversion, you pay taxes on that $100,000. So let's assume the same tax rate, 25%. That means your net conversion balance, or your net conversion is $75,000. Okay. Now, let's say we grow it 10% every year, same as before. We get to this amount, 120,000. Now, with the Roth, remember you withdraw it, you don't get taxed on it. So, since you don't get taxed on it, we can just take these straight withdrawals without worrying about tax, and it equals $120,000, which, as you might notice, is the same net number as the traditional IRA over here. Okay, so let's go back to the chair. Let me kind of explain something and talk about this a little bit more. All right, so what's going on here? I thought the Roth was so much better. It would earn more money. It's tax-free at the end of the time when you withdraw. Like, what's going on? Well, yeah, I mean, they're both advantageous accounts. They're better than just putting money in a brokerage accounts, because you might get taxed on the dividends and interest as your money grows. So they're tax advantaged. But essentially, they're kind of similar in their growth. They're similar in their net earnings. The only time you really want to plan and really be concerned about which account you want to move over to is when you're worried about tax bracket issues. If you're earning a lot of money, if you are a high earner, you want to start planning for, do you have a higher tax rate now in your life, or do you think you'll have a higher tax rate later on in your life when you retire? That's the kind of planning that you want to do if you want to be really concerned about whether you should put money in a traditional or a Roth. Either way, I don't think you should put so much effort into it and worry, because you'll end up in a pretty similar spot either way. So with that being said, I'm going to tell you my opinion on the priorities that you should be contributing. All right. So first of all, if you work for a job that has a 401k with a match, your employer matches, I would contribute up to the match, as much as you can, where they will match your contributions. Then your next priority will be the Roth IRA. Obviously, you have to be able to qualify to contribute to the Roth. If you make too much money, then forget about it. Let's stick to the 401k. But let's just take these priorities in availability, whatever you qualify for. So first is employer 401k with a match. Next priority is the Roth IRA. And then last priority is a traditional IRA. Okay. Now, if you have a 401k at work, you can still contribute to a traditional IRA, but there's income limits there, and you might actually make non-deductible contributions in that case. Okay. So just be aware of that. I'm not going to get into that in the details in this video, but those are the 3 orders of priority that I think people should follow. Just in general, your situation could be different based on your income and all that, but generally, I think that's a good order to follow. And then the most important thing, the very most important thing, is to make consistent contributions and don't ever let off on that. That's probably why the employer 401k is so attractive, because they just take it out of your paycheck. You don't think about it, it's just gone and it's yours for the future. So the most important thing you can do here is regular, consistent contributions. Don't touch it, don't withdraw it early. Just be sure to get those contributions in and get them invested in something good, okay? Time in the market is better than timing the markets. All right, so that's all I got for today. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below. Again, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel, smash the like button, all that crap, and take care for now. I'll see you next time.
I'm in the mood for a switch up. I hit the function, hit the rose till I hiccup. I hit the stage and leave with money that's a stick up. She picture perfect, so I told him I'm a